at the cattle market was our playground, because I used to play there with all my sisters and all our friends from round about. And we spent many happy hours in there, playing different games, the kids play. And sometimes we used to use the bullring as our stage, and we do performances.
Well, we first started going there, we'll be back in the early 1970s, and my children came along. We used to take them, and they used to play in the sheep pens, and it was a wonderful place for children to be, actually. Not at all, you didn't see the dangers, and the eldest one particularly used to get lost on purpose so she could have her name heard over the tannoy. And when it was cold, and I used to leave them in the office with Wendy and Ralph, and they used to look after them. Used to leave the prams in there as well, because I would more often than not be selling weaned calves, or at some stage I would then be buying weaned calves, depending on what we were actually doing.
We would have a look round the stores, and the pigs especially, they loved the pigs, and the person who looked after the pigs would very often put the children in with the pigs, and they'd stroke the little piglets, which was lovely, which of course wouldn't be allowed now.
It's roughly in the area at the back of the Market Tavern. And it wasn't a market day, obviously. And there was my dad with us kids in the back, went up and down the aisles, learning to drive his little Austin 7.
Generally, being on the market for a long day, it get boring, so me and my sister used to just disappear across into the cattle pens and run along the auctioneers boards, play hide and seek and swing on the gates as you do, and go into the big, I remember the big cow pens it was always, and because being a small child then, the gates were a lot taller, the fences were taller, so we used to just hide in there.
I started going to the market when I was about 4 or 5 with my dad in the summer holidays. I used to help a lady called Jo load the lorries with using, and after I'd done that I went down to the sweet shop with my friends, because there was like a little stall next to the market and you used to get sweets and cakes, and then I'd come back up to the market and look round all the sheep, and if there was cattle being moved, Dad used to put me in the pen out the way.
If one of us was ill, but not that ill that we couldn't sort of go out and we were away from school, when we were very small, my dad sometimes would take us to work. I remember on a few occasions where he took me, and in his office he would have 2 desks, and he would sit at the one desk and then he would shimmy me up in the chair to the other desk and just get a whole pile of scrap paper and just let me sit there all day quite happily scribbling away. And it was just a really, really nice atmosphere at the market. You always felt safe because everybody knew everybody.
Well, part of the fun of playing in the cattle market was Mr. and Mrs. Whiteford, who weighed all the lorries when they came in and out. Used to kind of weigh us all, and we used to think it was kind of magical as well, because it moved with the weight of all of us children.
Further down Edgar Street, roughly before Blackfriars Street, tracks across the road, they bring the cattle in and offload in the cattle market, because they'd shut the gates obviously, and then we'd stand there and watch them being offloaded.
Yeah, the livestock entered the cattle market in the entrance in Blackfriars Street, where there was a hut where the collector of the tolls, Harry Farmer, as his name was in those days, used to collect all the tolls from the lorry drivers or the farmers, whoever they were.
He would ask the farmer or the driver what stock they'd got on the vehicle, and he had a book of tickets, and he would mark on there how many he got, and so much per cattle, calf, sheep, pig, whatever, and he would hand them the counter for, and then they were allowed to come into the market and unload their stock. And at the end of the day, all those tickets in those books would come back up to our office, and I think after you, my job then was to enter them in a big ledger. It used to take me all day Thursday to enter them all up, because you can imagine the amount of animals that came in on a Wednesday, thousands. So it used to take me all day Wednesday to enter these tickets up and balance each book of 50 tickets. And the cash from that, obviously the City Council wanted revenue from every source, and so they made quite a bit of money, I would imagine, out of charging a toll for each animal that came in.
I used to walk in the door and then have to wade through these sheets of blue pipe smoke, like, can I do your ledgers, please? And so he had these. It was quite Dickensian the way they used to do things in those days. So you'd get down this huge ledger off the shelf. It was the size of a family Bible. So this thing would come down on the shelf here, and his lovely sort of old-fashioned writing. There'd be written for each day of sales. There'd be live 200, dressed 150, rabbits 47, eggs 90 dozen.
Well, going back when I would have been about 6 to 10, something like that. Routine was clamber in the car, come into town, park in the lorry wash car park as it was in those days, and just park up, leave the doors open. The men folk would go down into the market, and I would go with my mother. We'd head off up to the back of Buell Street, and there was a grocer's there. And we'd just drop off the household requirements for the next week with the order, and then disappear off up into High Town to Harris's Caff, as it was known, on the corner where I think McFisheries were, and then there's now Hines the Jewellers, and then probably somebody else since then, I think. But we'd have coffee, go up into town, do all the other household shopping and socialising as you do. We'd come back by the same cafe for having some lunch, or we might even go to the Continental Cafe as it was known in those days, and then head back to the car park, meet up with the men folk following the end of market. The grocery would have been delivered to the boot of the car by bicycle and pannier, and nobody ever stole anything. It was wonderful in those days, and back for home.